The Apple Watch goes off sale. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by our MacVoices holiday gift guides. Whether you are looking for gift ideas for others or products to spend those holiday gift cards on, our MacVoices holiday gift guide panels feature some of the guests' favorite gear and why they recommend it. Find all of our holiday gift guides at macvoices.com/holiday gift guides. All one word, holiday gift guides. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is the MacVoices Live Holiday Party. It's Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. We would love to have you join us in the chat room, even if you can't be here tonight. Come next week, because we'll still be here, and you should be too. And we do have some friends in the chat room already, and I'm sure more will show up as the stores close wherever they are and they have to give up on their shopping for the evening. The holiday party, virtual parties are always kind of interesting. So I told everybody, dress festively, get your favorite drink, and just show up and we'll talk tech. We're going to try not to be too grinchy, but there's some things that will tend in that direction. But we just have a lot to get through. So we're going to do it, but first we're going to introduce everyone who is festively dressed, and even if they're not, they're part of the team. So up in the top left of my screen, in the corner of the angels, Mr. David Ginsburg. David, all decked out in red. Good to have you.
Good to be here. Yes, and you must give Apple, so that's why I wanted to wear this. Yes, it's I figured got to wear red for Christmas celebrations here, holiday celebrations. So glad to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
What is that shirt from?
This was I think this is an Apple retail shirt that I bought off somebody.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing it. Yeah.
It's old, but it's good.
It's okay. Sporting a candy cane tie, Mr. Brian Flanigan-Arthurs is here. Brian, good to have you as always.
Well, thank you. So glad to be here.
Hey, you look so festive.
'Tis the season.
Dignified and festive. Jeff Gamet has opted to do the same kind of decoration that I'm doing, and that's red and green lights. Jeff, good to have you.
It's great to be here. And I was trying to find festive shirt, and apparently at least some of my wardrobe is still not unpacked. So I went with a clean shirt instead and festive lights.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed. This shirt is a green check, but it's really not showing up much green on the camera. So I should have tested it, but I didn't. That's life. But there's no question about the color shirt of Mr. Ben Roethig. He too is sporting a red shirt, and
I am indeed. I got the message.
Yeah, super holiday background, Ben. I'm impressed.
Yep, I took this a couple weeks ago during the tree lighting.
I thought maybe just all the elves came to your house after the tree lighting and decorated your home.
No, my office area still looks like a bunker.
But a very festive bunker, right?
So is Christmas just an extra dangerous time of the year with all the red shirts running around?
Brittany, it's like you're reading my mind.
Very
yes.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Between me, Dave, and Brian, one of us may not survive the episode.
Who's going on the away mission?
Yeah.
Quick, do you know everyone's first name?
Yeah, really.
Oh, crap.
Well, since Brittany is in there, I'm going to introduce her. Britt, good to have you as always. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Now, when I said what makes this a holiday party, you didn't say dress for it, or I might have thought about it for 2 seconds. But when I get up, I'll find something.
Well, that was in the instructions along with the show notes and everything. So
wait,
there were like 18 articles in there. I lost the memo.
Just in case we get bored, we have to be prepared.
All right.
Last but absolutely not least, sporting a very festive purple cap, I guess purple is a holiday color somewhere.
Color of
You're right.
royalty.
Color of royalty. Very good, Jeff.
It
Oh,
was all
well.
I could do to show up. Couldn't get the holiday theme going. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, you're King James for the night. How's that? All in
I'll take
favor. Yeah. All in
You know,
favor.
there's actually a different king that would be more appropriate to the season, but I'll just let it lie there.
Yeah. Yeah. But that king doesn't have a purple hat. So, I mean, come on.
I don't know what he wore.
Oh, boy. Let's not go there, Britt. No, you're going to take us in the really bad direction. There's several things that are just kind of hot right now. It seems like we should not be having any news this time of year, but boy, it keeps showing up. So the first thing I'm throwing in the chat room is something everybody's been talking about in the last couple of days, and that is the fact that I guess, is it tomorrow or Thursday that the Apple Watch will come off sale?
Christmas.
Well, I think isn't Christmas the mail order, but the store is shut down
Christmas
tomorrow.
is the deadline for the government or for the White House to say, no, you can keep selling. So I think tomorrow or the 21st is when the mail order stops, and then the 24th is when in-store sales stops.
But President Biden has the option to veto this so that sales could continue. Meanwhile, I threw a second article in the chat rooms as well, that Apple allegedly could avoid the watch ban with a software update that, if I'm understanding it correctly, would shut down the allegedly offending feature. So,
And what I'm wondering about that, was that affect people that already bought their watches?
And can you not update?
Well, for a while probably, but
yeah, I mean, a lot of great questions.
The
Jim.
article just says software alterations. It doesn't necessarily specify what those are, if they're off or if it's a different algorithm or what.
You're right. And it wasn't from Apple, so it's just sort of all speculative. But, by the way, I just bought a new watch last week because I'd heard about this a few weeks ago.
Which, coming from a company who never speaks public about anything that's tentative, it's interesting that they chose to speak about this to make sure they got their sales in.
What do you mean?
I'm not saying I would have done anything different.
This isn't Apple's choice to announce this. It's a court thing.
Well, but
it's not their choice to have it happen. It is their choice to comment on it.
And to do it preemptively, as opposed to just shutting down, which I heard that a couple of places, Britt, that this was, this is some grand scheme of Apple's to drive Apple Watch sales. And that doesn't ring really true. But on the other hand, I have an idea that probably Apple Watch sales did spike because of this, because you know how it is. If you tell somebody they can't have something, that's when they want it.
I'd be surprised if they spiked very much.
No, but what you want to do if you're Apple is make it not have a giant dent.
Yeah.
True.
And try to avoid that as much as possible. So,
and of course, this only affects the U.S. It's not worldwide.
Yes. Which, according to Brian's wonderful thing, is still largely United States based. At least half, or around half.
So that brings up an interesting point. If this is only in the U.S., then can Apple keep selling the watch other places, other countries?
Yes. Yeah, and they are.
Okay, so
it just can't be imported. Like it was going to, they were going to be impounded by customs. So that's why I was saying it's not really Apple announcing this. It's like unless the Biden administration makes a ruling, they're going to be impounded by customs starting the 25th. So Apple really waited pretty late to make any comment about it.
I could be wrong, but I think they did. But they still usually don't make comments at all. But
they got to say something if suddenly, if
they don't for lots of other things when it's their choice. When it's their choice to stop selling something, they don't always say something.
But this is somebody else is, all of a sudden a best-selling item is not going to be available anymore. They, how could they not say something?
They should, and they did.
Right. Yeah. But I don't see how they could not, and I don't see what this, would have to do with any, like some other product that wasn't selling that we all forgot about, and now they're not selling socks and they didn't say anything. I mean, this isn't like that. One of these things is not like the other.
No, they spoke about it, which was the correct business choice to make.
Ben?
A couple things. First, if you still want one of these, Apple stopping selling these is voluntary. Best Buy, Walmart, other retailers are still able to sell these as long as they have inventory. The other thing is, the CEO of Massimo does not actually think the software fix would be enough, and wants both a recall and hardware changes.
Oh my God, really?
Of course he does.
Yeah, of course he does.
Because they want to market their own watch or their own device.
Well, no, he wants a big chuck is what he wants.
Well,
yeah. Do they even make any devices? I thought they just made the technology.
Yes, they do.
Oh, they do? Okay.
They make many medical devices, including smartwatches. They also own a lot of audio brands, including Marantz and Denon.
Oh, okay.
So this is not a patent troll.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a patent troll. I just didn't realize that they were also making a potentially competing medical focused device.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean he wants a recall? He wants Apple to take my watch back and everybody else's from the last year?
Correct. All the ones that have been already that are already in the wild, so they can be changed to not affect the alleged patents.
So that would go back to what, the 6 or the 7?
That's a good question.
Because I'm pretty sure it's
7 for sure.
The 7 for sure. But I thought the 6 had the pulse oximeter also.
I'm sure if he gets his way, then they'll figure out which one it was.
It was a 6. And because that's the one I have, or had last. Anyway, but they're not. You can pull my watch, pry my watch from my cold dead hands. Like, don't get them.
Oh yeah, I mean they're obviously not going to do any. People already have watches. You're not going to lose them.
Yeah, Apple's not going to show up at your door knocking. Brittany, give us your watch.
No, there's nothing they can do about the watches are already purchased and in consumers' hands.
Suppose they could brick them.
The other interesting thing was that which isn't in this article, is the Massimo CEO did talk to Bloomberg and did say he doesn't believe Apple's going to be able to come up with a software fix like they keep saying. And his quote was they've been caught with their hands in the cookie jar. So this is going to be interesting to see. I mean, they want to change the algorithms. Is that going to suffice for the patent? Hard to say. But it seems like that they haven't had any communication with Apple in quite some time, because it seems like, I guess, the CEO hasn't talked to Apple since 2013. So this has been ongoing for this long a period. All of a sudden it's coming up 10 years later.
And if that's
there's
true,
been some kind of court case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If that is true,
See, Go ahead.
Yeah, if that's true, I mean, I would want to know more about that, because I can't believe that Apple has tried to play hardball and would not come to the table. I mean, I'm surprised both parties. I don't know who to blame on that one, because one way or another, if whoever said it earlier, if he really does want a big check, then okay, let's sit down and talk about it. But the demands he's making are just completely unrealistic. And I also, I mean, I don't know what to say about the option for Biden vetoing this, because there is an argument that you're taking a very beneficial function, potentially a very beneficial device, out of the hands of the public, as opposed to saying, work something out, guys. And I don't know if that's what Biden is hoping that will happen, that they'll, in the 11th hour, they will come to terms. But the Massimo CEO just seems to be completely, he really thinks he's in charge here, and he's making insane demands.
Right now, unless this were to be overturned, he essentially is in charge here.
Well, until the next appeal.
Right.
And maybe after that, but yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'm perplexed that a deal hasn't already gotten done.
I have a hypothesis on that.
Yeah.
And the hypothesis is that Massimo is being completely unreasonable with negotiations, because Apple, their modus operandi for situations like this is they do their thing, and then when they end up with an infringement case or some other related case, then they fight it out, and they either win or they throw money at it and it goes away. And so we've gone through the whole let's fight it out. It didn't go away. So Apple, I'm assuming, tried to throw money at it, and Massimo, they what they wanted was way more than Apple was willing to throw at them. And Apple clearly has very deep pockets. So that tells me it was a crazy, stupid amount of money. And Apple's like, you can take this, or we'll wait and see what the president says. And in the meantime, we're just pulling the watch from the United States, and, screw you.
Yeah.
Jeff, I would concur with that. I think that, and based on his public statements, it just sounds like they don't want to reach a deal, unless it's just their deal, and that's all there is. And so that's not the way this kind of thing should get resolved. I'm not about to sit here and say Apple's right or wrong on this. I don't know. I did hear today or yesterday that apparently years ago, I guess when this fight started, Apple came in and they hired a bunch of people away from the company, sometimes even doubling salaries. And, so that doesn't look real good for Apple. As far as, did they try to buy trade secrets? But that's one interpretation of it. It's not the first time that Apple has said, hey, we want to get in this business, so we're going to go hire the experts in it. Because in fact, who hasn't done that?
That's how business works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Webb in the chat room couldn't be with us tonight, but he said, don't confuse posturing with reality. So, Webb, is that advice for who's that advice for, or is that just for our interpretation? I'm curious to see where you're coming from with that. Well, one thing's for sure, that we will find out whether Biden decides to do anything, or whether this continues, whether there's another appeal. But if you want an Apple Watch and you're within the sound of my voice right now as we do this live, go and get it.
Oh, so that's why you wanted to do this topic first, to make sure you could get the memo out.
Well, Britt,
Just teasing.
no, but it's a fair point, and you were the one that brought it up. This will push people that maybe were on the bubble to go and get it, if that is an important feature to them. The damnable part about it is, though, that they're not just shutting down this feature as of now; they're shutting down watch sales. So all the other assets and benefits that come with an Apple Watch, you don't have access to unless you're going to buy way down on the scale to an Apple SE.
Mm-hmm.
So we shall see.
I mean, you can't sell a watch with this feature and not that feature. So
unless, Jim, as we said earlier, that they come up with something in the way of software or some kind of firmware that would disable that particular feature. And I'm not even sure.
It sounds like then it's back to court. Probably.
Yeah. I think that's the next step. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. I mean, all that was speculation. If Apple is working on that, would that satisfy the court order? I don't know.
Well, I mean, so Apple may do that, and then Massimo will put it back into court and say, and I would think if Apple lost a second time, a court would be pretty unhappy with Apple at that point for basically willfully infringing. The penalties might be really large at that point.
We'll keep an eye on this one. The other thing that's been such a hot topic is Beeper.
Wow.
David, I believe you just groaned.
It's just getting old. It really is, this whole topic with Beeper.
It's interesting to see the way it's being spun. Ken Ray on Monday did, I think, what was the ultimate commentary. And so if you don't listen to Ken Ray's show or you didn't hear it, go back and listen, because the politicians now that are jumping on the bandwagon, it was even worse than what we talked about last week, because it was so selective and so anti-business. But I mean, the politicians that were commenting were the ones that always seem to comment on this kind of thing. But Ken pointed out that it's not. There are options out there if you want secure end-to-end. It's not like Apple is preventing everyone from having end-to-end encryption. And he said it with his usual Ken Ray flair, and I can't possibly do it justice. So go back and listen to it. But I'm really tired of it. Oh, and then Jim, I've got to go and find it because I didn't prep that. But you put something. I'll let you tell us about the CBS Morning News thing that I watched that sent my blood pressure up.
Yeah, it was quite a take. And, that's the thing that's interesting about this, I think, is that, now that was on, I'm not sure what CBS show it was, but, clearly the newsreader people really had no idea. These politicians have no idea what they're talking about. It's just, complete nonsense. The only thing that I thought was kind of interesting about that was maybe it's just ignorance on my part. They actually interviewed the CEO of Beeper and the 16-year-old kid. So I had heard, what they had said before, but it was like, oh, there he actually, took me a while to realize, oh, that's actually the guy that's, the CEO of Beeper. So that was about the only thing I thought was interesting. It was like, this is very first person, but to me, it's like all nonsense. It's like, well, the story is hackers have broken into Apple servers, and people are saying, that they should be applauded. Excuse me? What planet have I just landed on?
Yeah, and the intro, I mean, it's the typical mainstream media intro. They made it sound like if you are using or having to endure green bubbles, it's like having, wooden
Right. I
splints
mean,
put under
the
your
whole
fingernail.
green bubble, blue bubble thing is, yeah.
And then they tried to say, oh well, Apple has the president of the new company is trying to say Apple has a monopoly on messaging.
Right.
It's like, really? I mean,
but that was the person saying that was the guy that's the CEO of Beeper.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So of course he's going to say that. So I mean, the problem with it was that the person interviewing just was like, oh, okay, they should have said, excuse me, why do you think it's okay to hack Apple servers? But they're just like, oh yeah, this is great what you're doing. So they didn't have anybody from Apple or even like a security researcher or anybody that knew what they're talking about. It's just complete nonsense, and giving this guy a platform on national TV to spew his side of the story with no context and so but what do you expect? Sadly, whenever you, at least in my experience, whenever I see the media cover some story that I know something about, it's like, oh, they're just completely wrong, which makes me assume that every other story must be the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. But the monopoly comment really got me, because I thought to let that for anybody for that to pass editorial muster. I mean, I get it. He's trying to make a sensational statement, but as far as I'm concerned, that just disqualified me from taking anything else he said seriously, because I can text with my Android friends. Okay, so we may not be able to have group chats. You may not have some of the niceties, but it's not like, I mean, it felt
I think there were some comments on that YouTube, and people were like, oh gosh, if I bought a ticket on Delta Airlines, I can't use it on American Airlines. Terrible. This is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Yeah. Brian?
Yeah, as I was going through the story and thinking about all the twists and turns of, Beeper works one day and then, it's intermittent. So for some folks it's working, some folks it's not, and there's different workarounds that keep coming up. And as Apple, like playing whack-a-mole on trying to, squash different ways that they're doing this, it made me kind of think. I wonder if, in a weird small way, Apple is going to sell some more products, some more Apple iPhones because of this. And my thought process is that, you don't necessarily know what you're missing out on until you've tried it, until you have it, and maybe give it an, maybe you're a Android user and you have the opportunity to take advantage of some of these iMessage features, not necessarily full-fledged, but some of the features in the blue bubble world. And, you're like, oh, that's pretty nice. And then getting it squashed out where you can't use it anymore, like, well, I kind of miss having that. Maybe I'll buy an iPhone, and it perpetuates it.
Maybe 5 people, but I think people have a pretty good idea of, what the difference is. And
Ben?
I will say this as someone who has worked both in journalism and politics. With the people who signed this letter, this is something Apple should be paying a lot of attention to. We're not talking about one particular politician playing to her base. We are talking about two very high-ranking senators from the Antitrust Subcommittee and 2 very high-ranking members of the House of Representatives. To me, whether Apple is in the right under current laws, this sounds like there could actually be a lot of support, far more than I thought there would be, for enacting something similar to the DMA laws in Europe.
And the people you're talking about are Senator Amy Klobuchar and Senator Mike Lee, who seem to be constantly on this anti-business tear. You know, anytime there's anything that looks like it might possibly be interpreted as anti-business, they're in there. Representative Jerry Nadler and Representative Ken Buck. And so, you know, I once again, I wish we could get someone that they would find credible to explain it to them, and not, you know, just do the sensational thing. And again, go back and listen to Ken Ray's takedown of this. I'm not saying you're wrong, Ben, by any means, you know, because there is a perception out there that big companies are bad. So,
Chuck.
Well, and I think in particular, Apple, you know, there's a large contingent of Apple haters out there, and you see that online all the time. And I assume some of those vote. So, you know, I don't think this is not going to go anywhere in Congress or with the DOJ, but it could stir up votes and stir up publicity for these people. It's just like TikTok should be banned. And sorry.
Yeah, Jeff, I'll give you final word.
You mentioned that it would be great if we could get someone that understands the topic to explain it to the various politicians. It doesn't matter that the people that are complaining in Congress, they don't understand the technology and they don't care to understand the technology.
Nope.
And this may or may not go anywhere. I'm thinking ultimately it won't. And actually at this point, I'm now comparing it to when we had all of the media and political craziness around the San Bernardino shooter incident and trying to force Apple to put a backdoor into software, and Apple really fought that. They ultimately did not have to put backdoors into the operating system and software, which also meant that other companies don't have to do that as well. I think in the end, we will see a similar outcome where it just kind of goes away.
I sincerely hope you're right.
Me too. Right. I mean, we do have politicians that are really going into a big election season, wanting to do things that make it appear as if they're here for the people. So that throws a whole wild card into this thing. I will be optimistic and hopefully not disappointed.
I suspect that these politicians have been told, you know, and understand what, you know, the reality is, and they've just chosen, you know, this is good PR for me. I don't care what, you know. And that happens all the time in politics.
Yeah, that's probably what happened during the San Bernardino situation as well. They were briefed, they understood, they didn't care.
Right.
But the briefing part is the part that disturbed me, Jeff, that because the mainstream media is not helping anyone by glossing over or ignoring facts. And Jim said it at the outset of this discussion. Somebody broke into Apple servers and is trying to use them. And, you know, that just, my example last week was, okay, then how about all these senators? Why don't you put your key under your mat? And, you know, if I get tired, I'll come in and sleep in your bed or lay on your couch. And, you know, because I deserve to. I'm tired. Not my best analogy, but anyway. Next time on Mac Voices, we finish up our beeper discussion, talk about Apple's loss of test flight data and why it's not as big a deal as some are making out, and why Adobe had a really bad week. That's next time on Mac Voices. I'm Chuck Joyner. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices each month. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.